Adam and Laura had built a life together that many envied. 17 years of marriage, a beautiful home, 2 children. Emily, the creative teenager with a love for theater, and Noah, the quieter, introspective one, with a deep passion for music. Their life was not without its challenges, but they had managed to carve out a routine, a rhythm that felt comfortable and safe. When Laura first mentioned her desire to get in shape, Adam saw it as just another phase, a fleeting thought like when she had tried yoga a few years back. But this time, her determination was different. It wasn't just about losing a few pounds or fitting into her favorite dress. It was about something more. She wanted to reclaim her energy, feel more confident, and embrace a new chapter in her life. Adam, supportive as always, agreed to help however he could. He paid for a fitness program, took on extra duties around the house, and encouraged Laura to stick with it. For a while, everything seemed fine. At first, the changes were small. Laura was more energized, she felt better about herself, and the positive changes in her body were noticeable. Adam admired the transformation and was proud of her for committing to something so important to her. But as the weeks turned into months, things began to shift. It wasn't just about feeling better anymore. It became an obsession. Laura began spending more and more time at the gym, attending events, and sharing her progress on Instagram. Her social media presence grew as her followers increased. At first, Adam didn't mind. He understood the importance of self-expression in today's world, and he encouraged her to keep going, even helping her set up a better camera for her workouts and cooking posts. But it didn't take long before the cracks started to appear. The dinner table, once a place of shared stories and laughter, became quiet. Laura would often check her phone during meals, scrolling through comments, responding to messages, or posting updates. Her once carefree laughter was replaced by focused stares as she perfected her next Instagram story. Adam tried to brush it off. After all, she was passionate about something. It was good for her, wasn't it? One evening, after dinner, Adam found himself alone in the living room with a glass of wine. The kids were upstairs, each in their rooms, and Laura had gone out to a fitness event she had been raving about all week. He sat on the couch, flicking through the channels, but his mind wasn't on the TV. It was on Laura. He remembered how they had once talked about everything, plans for their future, dreams of family vacations, how they would grow old together. Now, it felt like those conversations had become fewer and farther between. A familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. "Hey, honey, I'm home." Laura's voice was bright, but there was something off about it. Adam turned to face her, offering a smile. "How was the event?" "It was great," Laura replied, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door. "Met some cool people. I'm so excited about what's next. I've already got a few collaborations lined up." Adam raised an eyebrow. "Collaborations? What do you mean?" Fitness sponsors and brand deals. They're reaching out to me now. It's amazing." Adam couldn't help but feel a pang of discomfort. "I didn't realize things had escalated so much. You've been working so hard. I didn't know you were getting into all this." Laura brushed it off with a wave of her hand. "It's all part of the journey, Adam. You knew it would take time, right?" He nodded, but something in his gut didn't sit right. The old Laura, the one who had sat with him for hours discussing their plans, their hopes, seemed distant. The woman in front of him now felt like a stranger. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through his fingers, something that couldn't be fixed by just more support, more patience. But he remained silent. He didn't want to seem like he was questioning her passion. After all, she was still his wife, still the mother of their children. She deserved his support, didn't she? Later that evening, after Laura had retreated to her room to prep for her next event, Adam sat with the kids in the living room. Emily was flipping through her phone, Noah was strumming his guitar, and the house felt quiet again. He wondered if they noticed it too. Maybe it wasn't just him. Maybe this wasn't just a phase. Maybe the cracks were widening. The next morning, Adam woke up to the sound of Laura's alarm blaring. She was already up, working out in the living room, sweating as she pushed herself through another intense routine. Adam rubbed his eyes and pulled himself out of bed, trying to shake the feeling of unease that lingered from the night before. He made coffee and prepared breakfast for the kids. As he went about his morning routine, a thought crossed his mind, something that had been there, gnawing at him for a while. Was this all really what Laura wanted? Or was it something deeper? Something that he hadn't been able to understand? He glanced at the clock. It was almost time for the kids to head out for school. Laura would be leaving soon for another event, and the cycle would repeat itself. More time at the gym, more social media updates, more distance between them. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The question lingered in his mind as he finished his coffee. How much longer could he keep pretending everything was fine? Adam had always believed in the strength of their relationship, but now that belief was beginning to crumble. Would Laura's obsession with fitness and whatever else was driving her take her further away from him? Or was he just being paranoid? After all, this was her dream, wasn't it? Adam sighed and looked over at Emily, who was gathering her things. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked, his voice soft. Emily gave him a tight smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just tired, you know." He nodded, knowing that her answer wasn't as simple as it seemed. He knew Emily well enough to sense that something was off with her too. She had become quieter over the past few months, her once constant chatter replaced with an air of distance. Noah, too, had grown more reserved, pouring himself into his music but saying little about how he was feeling. Adam tried to push the thoughts aside as he helped Emily grab her bag and wave her out the door. The sound of the door closing behind her echoed in the silence that followed. Adam felt a shift in the air. He wasn't sure what it was yet, but something had changed. The foundation of their family, built on years of love and compromise, seemed to be cracking under the weight of Laura's new obsession. And the worst part was, he didn't know how to fix it.
Days passed, and the tension between Adam and Laura continued to grow, unspoken but palpable. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt colder. Laura's fitness journey had taken over every aspect of her life. It wasn't just about the time she spent at the gym anymore. It was about the lifestyle, the brand she was building, and the online persona she was crafting. Her Instagram had become a reflection of her identity, and the more followers she gained, the more distant she became from the family she had once prioritized. Adam tried to hold on to the hope that it was just a phase, a temporary distraction. But as he watched Laura become increasingly obsessed with her new life, he felt a sense of helplessness creeping in. She had started to prioritize her fitness events over family gatherings, her phone buzzing constantly with messages from sponsors and potential business partners. It wasn't just the time she spent away from him, it was the way she began to dress, the way she spoke, the way she carried herself. It was as though she had become someone else entirely. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Adam came home to find the house unusually quiet. Laura was nowhere to be found. Her gym bag was missing, and the faint hum of her phone could be heard from the kitchen counter. He glanced at the clock. It was almost 8 o'clock and the kids would be home soon. He grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and sat down at the table, waiting for Laura to return. When she finally walked through the door an hour later, Adam didn't recognize the woman who stood before him. Her hair was styled differently, more polished than usual, and her outfit was more revealing than he had ever seen her wear. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey," she said casually, dropping her gym bag on the floor. Adam swallowed, his thoughts racing. "Where were you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Laura shrugged, her eyes flickering to her phone. "I went to meet with a potential sponsor for a new campaign. It's all business, Adam. You know how it is." Adam forced a smile. "I thought we agreed we'd have dinner together tonight?" "I know, I'm sorry. I got caught up in the meeting," she replied absently, scrolling through her notifications. "I'll make it up to you later. I promise. Later." The word lingered in Adam's mind as he watched her retreat to the living room, her attention already consumed by the screen in her hands. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was losing her little by little, every day. Dinner that evening was quiet. Emily and Noah had come home from school, but they were just as distant as their mother. Emily buried herself in her phone, and Noah strummed his guitar in the corner of the room, barely acknowledging anyone. Adam did his best to hold the conversation together, asking about their days, trying to bridge the gap between them, but it was as if an invisible wall had risen between him and the people he loved most. As the night wore on, Adam found himself in the kitchen, washing dishes by himself, the silence pressing in on him. He glanced up and saw Laura in the hallway, her phone still in hand, her attention focused elsewhere. She barely looked at him as she passed by, her expression neutral. For a moment, Adam stood frozen, the sound of the running water echoing in the emptiness around him. He had tried everything, supporting her, giving her space, being patient, but it felt like nothing was working. It felt like she had already checked out of their marriage mentally and emotionally. Later that night, as they both lay in bed, Adam could feel the distance between them. Laura had fallen asleep almost immediately, her breathing steady, but Adam lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced, filled with thoughts of what had gone wrong. He thought about the life they had once shared, the late-night talks, the shared dreams, the quiet moments of connection. It all seemed so distant now, like a memory from a past life. He didn't know when things had started to change, but he could feel it deep in his bones. Laura wasn't the same woman he had married. He closed his eyes, hoping for sleep to take him, but all he could think about was the growing uncertainty in his heart. The next day things took another turn. Adam had been noticing strange signs for weeks, but today they became impossible to ignore. Laura's phone buzzed constantly, but when Adam glanced at the screen, he noticed something unusual. She was texting someone named Alex. He didn't think much of it at first. After all, she had many friends and acquaintances from the fitness world. But as the texts continued, Adam's gut began to churn. That evening, when Laura went out again for another event, Adam took a deep breath and decided to confront the growing discomfort in his chest. He opened her phone, his fingers trembling. He knew it was a violation of her privacy, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The moment he opened the messages, his heart sank. There were texts between Laura and Alex, filled with flirtatious banter and intimate exchanges that left nothing to the imagination. Adam's mind raced as he scrolled through the messages. He could feel the knot tightening in his stomach. Laura had been lying to him. As the evening wore on, Adam found himself caught between disbelief and anger. He couldn't believe what he had just discovered. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't he noticed the signs earlier? The question spun around in his head, but one thing was clear. Everything had changed. When Laura returned late that night, Adam was waiting for her. The moment she stepped through the door, he didn't say a word. Instead, he held up her phone, showing her the messages between her and Alex. Her eyes widened in shock, and for the first time in weeks, Adam saw something genuine in her expression: fear. "What is this?" Adam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Laura hesitated, her hands shaking slightly. I can explain." Adam's heart pounded in his chest. "How long, Laura? How long has this been going on?" "I didn't mean for it to happen, Adam," she began, but her words felt hollow, unconvincing. I was lonely. I didn't know how to talk to you about it." "Lonely?" Adam echoed, his voice cracking. "You were lonely? While we were building this life together, raising our children. You've been lying to me, Laura. Lying about everything." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes, but Adam felt no sympathy. The truth was undeniable now, and nothing she said could change what had been revealed. The trust they had built over the years had been shattered in an instant, and Adam wasn't sure how to fix it. "Adam, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far," Laura pleaded, but Adam was done. The pain in his chest was suffocating. His heart ached for the family he had tried so hard to protect, but it was too late. Laura had made her choice. And now, Adam had to face the consequences. As Laura stood there, broken and remorseful, Adam realized that their marriage, the life they had known, was over. He didn't know what came next, but he knew one thing: he would never be the same. The days following Laura's confession felt like a blur to Adam. Each morning he would wake up with the same pit in his stomach, the same feeling of betrayal weighing heavily on his chest. Laura had left for a work event shortly after the confrontation, and Adam found himself alone in the house, staring at the empty spaces she had once filled. It was as though a shadow had settled over the home that had once been a place of comfort and familiarity. Emily and Noah had noticed the tension, of course. They had seen the way their parents had grown apart, though they hadn't understood why. But now, with the truth out in the open, they could feel the shift in the air. The silence between them was unbearable. Adam didn't know how to explain to his children what had happened, how their mother, the woman who had raised them, who had always been there, had chosen to leave them behind. Emily was the first to ask. It was after dinner, a meal that no one had really eaten, when she finally spoke up. "Dad, what's going on?" Her voice was quiet but full of concern. "Where's Mom?" Adam paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. He glanced over at Noah, who had his head down, staring at his plate. He knew Noah was struggling to process everything in his own way. He took a deep breath before responding, his voice thick with emotion. "Mom, she's not coming back, sweetheart," Adam said softly. "She's made some choices and she's left us." Emily's eyes widened with disbelief. "What do you mean? What choices?" Adam felt his heart breaking for his daughter. She deserved to know the truth, But how could he explain it without completely shattering the image she had of her mother? He could see the confusion in Emily's eyes as she searched his face for answers, and he knew there was no easy way out. She's been seeing someone else, Adam said, his voice faltering. She's been unfaithful. The words hung heavy in the air, and Emily's face crumpled with shock and hurt. She turned away quickly, her hand covering her mouth as if trying to block out the pain. Noah, who had been silent up until now, finally looked up, his face pale and distant. Is that why she's been so distant? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Adam nodded, feeling the weight of his own sorrow. Yes, Noah. It is. But it's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Noah didn't respond. Instead, he picked up his guitar and retreated to his room, leaving the silence to settle like a heavy fog. Emily sat there for a moment longer, staring at her untouched food, her face pale. Adam could see the storm of emotions brewing inside her. He didn't know how to comfort her, how to make it better. He only knew that he had to be strong for them. That night, after Emily and Noah had gone to bed, Adam sat in the living room, staring at the family pictures on the wall. There was one of them on vacation, smiling on a beach, their lives carefree. Another of the four of them on Christmas Eve, everyone dressed in cozy sweaters, their arms wrapped around each other. Those moments now felt like a lifetime ago. The quiet of the house pressed in on him. The emptiness that Laura had left behind seemed to echo through every room, and he found it harder and harder to breathe. He didn't want to be angry, but how could he not be? How could he not feel betrayed by the woman he had loved for so long? How could he reconcile the woman he thought he knew with the stranger who had chosen someone else? As the days passed, Adam tried to carry on. He took care of the kids, went to work, did what he could to keep things as normal as possible. But it was like walking through a fog. He felt disconnected from everything. He would glance at Laura's side of the bed, now empty, and his heart would ache with a pain so raw it felt physical. He couldn't understand how she had thrown everything away. How could she do this to their family? Meanwhile, Laura had disappeared into her new life with Alex, though Adam had heard nothing from her since their confrontation. It was almost as if she had erased herself from the family's narrative entirely. There were no calls, no attempts to reach out to the kids. Adam didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Laura had left him or the fact that she had walked away from their children so easily. Adam kept hoping that things would change, that Laura would return, that she would realize the magnitude of what she had done. But as the weeks went by, it became clear that this was no longer just a bump in the road. This was the end of a chapter, one he hadn't seen coming, one he wasn't prepared for. One day, Adam found a letter from Laura in the kitchen. It was short and to the point. She apologized for everything, for the hurt she had caused and for leaving. She said she needed to find herself, that she had become lost in her pursuit of something she thought would make her happy. But Adam knew she had already made her choice. And in that choice she had abandoned her family. The letter didn't bring closure. It didn't make him feel any better. It just confirmed what he had already known. Laura had left them behind and there was no turning back. Adam folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, locking it away. He didn't need to read it again. He didn't need her words anymore. What he needed was to move forward, to find a way to heal for himself and for Emily and Noah. But healing would take time. And time, it seemed, was the one thing Adam couldn't control. The days turned into weeks, and Adam found himself navigating life as a single parent, a role he had never anticipated. Every morning he would wake up early, make breakfast for Emily and Noah, and try to keep the routines as normal as possible. But nothing felt normal. The silence in the house was deafening, and the absence of Laura loomed over everything. He still couldn't understand how she could walk away so easily, leaving him to shoulder the weight of their broken family. Emily, ever the sensitive one, seemed to withdraw further into herself. Her bright, outgoing nature had dimmed, replaced with a quiet sadness that Adam couldn't fix. She spent hours in her room, either on her phone or reading, and when she did come downstairs, it was only for brief moments before retreating again. Noah, on the other hand, buried himself in his music. He would strum his guitar for hours, the sound of his songs filling the silence that had once been filled with laughter and conversation. But despite his music, Noah was just as lost as his sister, both of them trying to process the sudden disappearance of their mother. Adam tried to talk to them, tried to keep the communication lines open, but the pain in their eyes was a constant reminder of what had been torn apart. They didn't want to talk about Laura. They didn't want to think about her. And Adam didn't blame them. One afternoon, as Adam was cleaning up after lunch, he received a message from Sarah, his old friend. Sarah had been there for him through thick and thin, and now she was offering a shoulder to lean on once again. She suggested they meet up for coffee and Adam agreed. He needed someone to talk to, someone who understood the weight of what he was going through. When they met at the local cafe, Sarah could see the exhaustion in Adam's eyes, the grief that had become a constant companion. "You're holding up okay?" she asked softly, her voice full of concern. Adam shook his head, the sadness heavy in his chest. "I don't know. I'm doing what I can for the kids, but it's hard, Sarah. It's hard to keep pretending everything's fine when it's not." Sarah nodded, her expression empathetic. "I can only imagine. But you're doing what you need to do. You're being strong for them. That's all you can do right now." Adam let out a sigh, looking down at his coffee cup. "I keep asking myself why. Why did she do it? Why leave? We had something real. We had a family. It's not your fault, Adam. You didn't cause this. Laura made her choices. And you have to remember that it's not on you to fix it." Adam looked up at Sarah, his eyes filled with pain. "I know. I keep thinking that maybe if I had done something differently, maybe if I had been more patient, more understanding, maybe she wouldn't have left." "Adam," Sarah said gently, "you can't carry that guilt. You did everything you could. But you can't change what Laura chose. You can only focus on what's in front of you now." Adam nodded, but the weight of the guilt was still heavy. He couldn't help but feel like he had failed. He had always prided himself on being a good husband, a good father, but now, everything felt like it was slipping through his fingers. The life he had worked so hard to build, the family he had fought for, where had it all gone? "I don't know how to move forward," Adam confessed, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to rebuild." Sarah placed a comforting hand on his. "One step at a time, Adam. You're not alone in this. And you're stronger than you think." That night, after Emily and Noah had gone to bed, Adam sat in the living room, the silence once again overwhelming him. He thought about what Sarah had said, one step at a time. It sounded so simple, yet it felt impossible. How could he rebuild when the foundation of his life had been ripped away? As he sat there, his thoughts turned to the kids. They were hurting just like him, and Adam knew that they needed him more than ever. He needed to find a way to be there for them, to help them heal, just as he was trying to heal himself. The next morning, Adam decided to take a different approach. He had been so focused on trying to fix things for himself that he had neglected to really check in with Emily and Noah. He needed to be more present, more involved. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was the first step toward moving forward. He sat down with Emily over breakfast, her eyes still tired from the restless nights she had spent. He didn't ask her to talk about Laura, he simply asked how she was doing. And for the first time in weeks, Emily opened up. She talked about how she missed the family vacations, how she missed the way things used to be. It was a small breakthrough, but it was something. Later that afternoon, Adam sat down with Noah, who had spent most of his time in his room writing music. He didn't push Noah to talk either. Instead, they just sat together listening to his songs. Noah had written a new piece that he had been working on, and as he played, Adam could hear the raw emotion in his son's voice. It was clear that Noah was struggling too, but he was starting to find his own way of expressing his pain. Adam realized something in that moment. He didn't have to have all the answers. He didn't need to fix everything. What mattered was being there for his kids, letting them know that even though their world had been turned upside down, they weren't alone. And slowly, Adam began to see the first glimmers of healing, small moments where the darkness felt just a little bit lighter. As the weeks went by, Adam continued to focus on his children. They had their ups and downs, but little by little they were beginning to rebuild. And so was he. He knew it wasn't going to be easy, and there would be days when the pain would feel overwhelming, but Adam understood now that healing wasn't a straight path. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes unbearably slow. But it was a path he was willing to walk, one step at a time. And even though Laura's absence still hung over them, Adam started to believe that they would find a way to be okay again. They would learn to live without the person who had once been the center of their world, but they would do it together. The days stretched on, blending into one another like a continuous loop of routine and survival. Adam had come to accept that this new chapter of his life, one without Laura, was something he would have to face head-on. He had stopped asking why, stopped replaying the memories of the life he once thought was unshakable. Instead, he focused on the here and now. His children were his priority, and though the road was long, Adam had learned to take it one day at a time. But as the weeks passed, something shifted. It wasn't drastic, but it was enough for Adam to notice. Emily, who had been distant and withdrawn for so long, began to open up in small ways. One evening, she joined him on the couch to watch a movie, something they used to do regularly before everything had changed. Noah, too, had started to engage more, not just with his music but with his family. He began to write less mournful songs and started experimenting with more uplifting melodies, though Adam could still hear the undercurrent of sadness in his voice. It was progress. Adam, though still carrying the weight of everything that had happened, found himself slowly healing too. He wasn't the same person he had been before the heartbreak, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. He was learning to adapt to the quiet moments, to the stillness of the house without Laura's presence. He was becoming comfortable with the new rhythms of life, even if they felt different. Then one afternoon as Adam was picking up groceries, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. Sarah ***, Laura called. She wants to see the kids. She says she's sorry and wants to talk. Adam froze for a moment, the weight of the message sinking in. He hadn't expected to hear from Laura, not after everything that had happened. His first instinct was to ignore the message, to leave things as they were. But then a wave of uncertainty washed over him. He didn't know if he was ready for Laura to re-enter their lives, but he also knew that he couldn't shield his children from the truth. Emily and Noah had the right to make their own decisions about their mother, even if it was painful for Adam. He stood in the grocery store, staring at the phone, unsure of what to do next. After a few minutes, he typed a reply. Adam ***, I'll let the kids decide. I'll talk to them tonight. That evening after dinner, Adam sat down with Emily and Noah. They were both quieter than usual, the tension still hanging in the air, but Adam could feel the shift in their moods. He needed to address the message from Laura. Guys, Adam began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I got a message from Laura today. Emily's head snapped up, her eyes wide. What did she want? She wants to see you both, Adam said softly. She wants to apologize and talk. Noah didn't say anything at first, his fingers drumming nervously on the edge of his guitar. Emily, however, seemed to be struggling with the idea. Is she really sorry? Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. I mean, after everything she did. Adam took a deep breath. I don't know, sweetheart. I can't tell you what's in her heart, but I do think you both deserve a chance to decide if you want to hear her out. She's your mother. The room fell silent as Emily and Noah exchanged glances. It was clear that both of them were torn. They wanted to see their mother, to understand why she had done what she did, but there was so much hurt in their hearts. Adam could see the internal struggle written all over their faces. What do you want to do? Adam asked gently, his eyes softening with understanding. This isn't about me. It's about what you both feel. Emily looked at Noah, who nodded ever so slightly. Then she turned back to Adam, her voice quiet but determined. I think I'm ready to see her. But it's not going to be the same, Dad. It can't be. Adam nodded. I know it won't be the same. But I think you should do what feels right for you. Noah, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke. I want to see her too. But I'm not sure I'm ready for all the talking. I just want to know why. Adam's heart clenched. I understand. I'll be here no matter what. We'll take this one step at a time together. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on everything that had brought them to this point. He had always hoped that Laura would come back, that they could fix what was broken, but he had to admit to himself that it was no longer about him. It was about Emily and Noah. They had been through the hardest part, and now they had the chance to rebuild their relationship with their mother if they chose to. The next day, Adam arranged for the meeting. It would take place in a neutral space at a small cafe just outside the city. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he knew it was the right thing to do. He wanted his children to have closure, to have a chance to ask the questions that had been hanging over their heads for months. When the day arrived, Adam drove Emily and Noah to the cafe, his heart heavy but determined. He hadn't seen Laura in weeks, and as they approached the table, he noticed her sitting there, looking just as lost as he felt. Her face was older, tired, but there was an undeniable sadness in her eyes. Mom, Emily said softly as she sat down, her voice barely above a whisper. Laura's face crumpled as she looked at Emily. I'm so sorry, sweetie. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen. Adam watched from a distance, his heart aching for both of them. He knew the conversation wouldn't be easy, but this was their chance. It wasn't about healing the past. It was about giving them the space to decide their own futures with Laura. He saw them both in that moment starting to process everything. Noah remained quiet, his hands clenched around his cup, but Adam could see the faintest glimmer of hope in his eyes. Maybe they could rebuild. Maybe, in time, they could learn to trust again. For now, Adam would stand back and let them speak their truths, knowing that no matter what happened, they were stronger than they had been before. The path to healing wasn't clear, but they were taking the first steps. And that was enough for Adam, for now. The cafe was quiet, the soft hum of conversation and the clinking of coffee cups filling the air. Adam sat back, watching as Emily and Noah hesitated, their eyes locked on Laura. It was clear this meeting was no easy step for either of them. There was so much pain and so many unanswered questions that could never be fully resolved with just one conversation. But they had made the decision to be here, and for that Adam was proud of them. Laura sat at the table, her hands trembling slightly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I've done so many things wrong," she began, her voice breaking, "and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I've been lost in all of this, and I never wanted to hurt either of you." Emily, who had been quiet for so long, finally spoke up. "Why, Mom? Why did you leave us?" Her voice cracked with emotion, the hurt clear in every word. "Why did you choose him over us?" Laura's face softened as she looked at her daughter. "I didn't want to choose him over you, Emily. I never wanted to hurt you. But I was so consumed by this need to be something else, to be someone I thought I could be. I was so focused on fitness and building my brand that I lost sight of what mattered most. I lost sight of you and of your father." Emily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "It doesn't make sense, Mom. You used to care about us so much. We were a family, and now it feels like you're just a stranger to me." Laura wiped her tears away, her voice desperate now. I know it doesn't make sense. I wasn't thinking clearly and I made a terrible mistake. But please don't think I ever stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to balance everything. I got caught up in this world I thought I wanted, and now I see how much I've lost." Noah, who had remained silent up until now, spoke in a quiet voice. "Do you still love us, Mom? Do you love us the way you did before?" Laura's eyes welled up with more tears as she reached out to Noah, her voice trembling. "Of course I do. I never stopped loving you both. But I know that love doesn't fix everything. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry for everything. I want to be here for you if you'll let me." There was a long pause as Emily and Noah exchanged looks, their faces torn between the desire for answers and the need to protect themselves from further pain. Adam watched them, knowing this was a pivotal moment in their healing. He had always hoped they would get this chance, this opportunity to speak with Laura and express their hurt, their confusion, and their anger. But he also knew that it wasn't just about Laura's apology. It was about their ability to move forward, whether or not Laura would be a part of their future. Emily, after a long silence, finally spoke. "I don't know, Mom. I don't know if I can just go back to how it was. I'm not sure if I can forgive you right now." Noah nodded silently, his expression unreadable. Adam could see the weight of their emotions hanging heavily on them both. They had been hurt in a way that would take time to heal, and forgiveness wasn't something that could be rushed. Laura looked devastated, but she nodded in understanding. "I know, and I'll give you both the time you need. I don't expect things to go back to how they were right away. But I hope in time we can rebuild what we had." Adam's heart clenched as he watched the interaction between them. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy for any of them. Rebuilding trust wasn't something that could be done overnight, but this meeting, this raw, vulnerable conversation, was a step in the right direction. As the meeting came to a close, Adam stood up, his chest heavy with the complexity of the situation. Emily and Noah were both quiet as they stood to leave, but Adam could see the shift in them. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. Laura, for all her mistakes, had shown them that she was willing to try, and that, in itself, was something to acknowledge. As they left the cafe, Adam glanced over at his children. Emily was walking a little slower than usual, her head down, processing everything she had just heard. Noah, though quieter than usual, seemed less burdened, as if a small weight had been lifted from his shoulders. They didn't talk much on the drive home. Adam didn't push them to say anything, knowing they needed time. When they got home, Emily went straight to her room, Noah sat down with his guitar, and Adam found himself standing alone in the quiet of the living room. It had been a long, emotional day, but Adam knew they were a step closer to healing. Laura's return to their lives wouldn't be an easy fix, and there would be more difficult conversations ahead. But Adam had learned something in that moment, that sometimes healing wasn't about having all the answers. It was about taking the first step, no matter how painful, and being open to the possibility that things could change, even if it was just one small piece at a time. The next few days passed in a quiet routine. Adam focused on his children, giving them the space they needed to process everything. Emily continued to retreat into herself, but she seemed less angry, more accepting of the idea that Laura's absence was something she had to reconcile with, rather than something that would simply be fixed. Noah, while still deeply affected, started to write new songs, his lyrics more reflective and thoughtful than before. Adam realized that, although the road ahead would be long and filled with uncertainty, they were beginning to find their way. Slowly they were rebuilding the broken pieces of their family, learning how to move forward, not as they once were but as a new version of themselves, stronger, wiser, and more resilient. As Adam sat in his quiet living room one evening, watching Emily and Noah in their separate spaces, he understood that the healing process wasn't a straight line. It wasn't about fixing everything but about learning to live with the brokenness, accepting it and finding strength in it. And for the first time in a long while, Adam felt a sense of peace. He didn't know what the future would hold for him, for his children, or for Laura, but he knew that they would face it together, one step at a time. And that, he realized, was enough.